Yo, what's going on, people? It's the Suave Kid. Welcome to another edition of Thoughts of an Abstract Mind. Today we at the park. Look at this beautiful park right here. Look at this beautiful park right here. I'm just meditating, thinking a few things. So, I literally just watched Tucker Carlson's full dress down of Donald Trump. And by dress down, I mean a really, really serious dress down of Donald Trump. Why do I say it's a dress down? Because I've never seen anyone break down the guy so in depthly like Tucker Carlson did. And the funny thing was, Tucker Carlson's like one of Trump's staunchest supporters at the start of his campaign. All right wingers and, right wing politics and, that kind of stuff. Staunch supporter of him. So it's kind of funny how everything's evolved to this. And at the moment, it seems like all the main right wing pundits, you got Candace Owens and all of that, they're all turning on the Trump. You know, Trump is that bad. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I mean, Carlson, yeah, you raised a few points that I find very interesting. Let me sit down. Look at this. I mean, he raised a few points that I found very, very interesting, i.e., Trump not putting his hand on the Bible when he was swearing his oath, which I didn't. I'll be honest, I watched bits of the inauguration. I didn't even notice that, but I found that very strange and how things have evolved since then. You know, is very strange. He also mentioned various things. Obviously recently with the Iranian war and Trump threatening the Iranians. They had the peace talks and it's failed, and he's threatening to bomb them and etc. etc. And he was raising a point of, listen, you're gonna bomb these people. You're definitely gonna kill civilians. And if you claim to be a Christian president, that's far from the principles of Christianity. You know what I mean? He raised quite a few points. He raised quite a few points. I'm just flabbergasted that Tucker Carlson is against Trump now. As beginning of his campaign, he couldn't do no wrong. You know what I mean? He couldn't do no wrong. And it just goes to show you, if your own support base is turning against you, then surely you must be doing something wrong. Not just something, a few things wrong. You know? He also mentioned about how, Trump, the tones of Trump likening himself to Christ himself and his spiritual advisor, and the way she, likens Trump. There's this like this press conference they had, and she did a little sermon, and she was likening Trump to Christ, basically. Which I found very strange, and isn't it sacrilegious in the Christian religion? I'm not religious myself, so you know, but it just goes to show. And I kind of said this when he came back in power. Just watch this time. Watch how bad, because he knows this is his last time, so he's gonna exercise every idea he ever had, because he knows he's not coming back. I was telling people, just watch how bad things are gonna get before it gets good. You know what I mean? And he's showing it. He's showing it. Candace Owens. I watched her take on it as well, and she basically likened the whole thing to, like, basically the Roman, ancient Rome, and the ancient Romans used to do the Colosseum, get the performers, get the gladiators to perform for the crowd as the people in power go behind the books and do what they're doing. You know what I mean? She raised a few points in her dialogue as well, uh, and a bit of nature, you know. So it's funny. It's funny. I didn't think things would would evolve to this point, but it just goes to show. I hope the next president America has changes some things. Because America right now has pushed itself with Trump politics. America right now has pushed itself into a position where most of the world don't really relate to it anymore. The influence America held over the globe is pretty much diminished at this point. Why do I say that? Trump came in power, took away American aid. You know how much of a difference American aid was making for a lot of countries, countries in Africa, countries in Asia, and this, that. Simply because of that aid, people will listen to whatever the Americans said, follow them into whatever war, and just blindly follow them everywhere. And you took that away just cause, And there's been research to show how much good it does across the globe. And you took that away just cause. When you take that away, who's gonna fill the gaps? The Chinese, the Russians. Although the Chinese are gonna come with cheap loads and end up taking over. We already talked about that. But they will fill the gaps. They got their own thing going. They got the BRICS now, trying to get as many countries on their side as possible. So I do hope the next president America gets is someone a bit more level-headed, someone a bit more reasonable that can really change the narrative on America now. Because even over here, the UK now, the one of America's longest term allies. No, the narrative is, listen, we're better off just joining with the EU and covering ourselves that way. Clearly, we can't depend on the Americans. If we listen to the rhetoric from Trump and some of his allies, clearly nobody cares about the UK like that. So now the rhetoric here is, listen, we should form, and Starmer just said it recently. I just read a post that he posted on social media. We should form stronger alliances with the EU. It's not just us. A lot of the European countries, France, Germany, you know what I mean? Everyone's saying, listen, we're better off having our own UK, European power base, to spin off from, as opposed to, you know, depending on Americans and expecting them to lead and then we follow. And all this is down to Trump politics, you know? So let's see. Let's see how all this ends in the end. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments.